Hi, I'm Allison Richard, your stress management and self-care coach and also a yoga instructor. So I would like to talk about our hamstrings for today. So there are so many things that can make our hamstrings tight in our daily lives, from either prolonged sitting or potentially walking in maybe not ideal shoes or just walking a lot. And also what can be called that kind of forward head posture of when we're at our computers or we're looking at our phones and our head is just kind of coming forward and down, which is pulling the neck forward. So all of this can kind of impact our hamstrings, and if they're feeling tight or loose, or the positioning of our pelvis, which can also change if our hamstrings are feeling tight or loose. So just wanted to work today to really kind of lengthen those hamstrings and kind of bring our body back into that optimal alignment, because this is probably the one request I get the most often at the start of yoga classes is hamstrings. So I wanted to work with that for today. And any sort of tension or tightness in our body often can be very connected to how we're feeling internally. So if we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling rushed, if we're feeling like we're behind and we're kind of running to the next thing, we're probably taking really short and fast steps, which is really going to kind of contract and tighten the hamstrings, the quads, and everything else, because we're not fully taking those kind of long strides so that the muscle gets kind of fully extended in each direction, the forward step and the backward step, or when the leg is behind and the leg is forward. So wanting to also be aware of if we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling rushed, and how much we are breathing or not breathing, because that can also really impact a lot of tension and tightness in our body. So we're just going to test for a moment. Go ahead and you can extend your legs out in front of you for a moment, and if it feels like you cannot have your legs straight and they're really tight, you can always feel free to kind of grab your block or something to sit up on if you have it and kind of prop yourself up. So feel free to do that if you need to, pillow, anything like that. And I just want you to extend your legs out. And again, when your legs are straight, just feel how hard it feels or easy it feels to kind of sit up tall. So does it feel like you can kind of sit on those little rounded edges of your sit bones underneath you? Or does it feel like, you're kind of just rounding back a lot? Turn this way. So does it feel like that low back is rounding and you're just really fighting to kind of sit tall? So just be aware of that for a moment. And again, prop yourself up if you need to. You can always soften and bend the knees a little bit if you need to as well. So from here, I just want you to start to now, with the knees slightly bent to start, just flex your ankles for a moment. And then if you can, kind of start to lengthen the legs out. Think about kind of drawing the thighs up as you kind of push the heels forward to lengthen. So when we're stretching hamstrings, you never want to think about kind of pushing down through the knees, because that's just going to hyperextend the knees. So you really want to think about lengthening your leg in both directions as a way to kind of lengthen those hamstrings. So now that you have your feet flexed, now start to notice where some of that tension is at the back. So do you feel it more in the calves and the lower legs, upper legs? And this is just kind of sitting tall. So you're not even leaning forward yet. So just notice if there's tightness there or not. And then from there, I also want you to stay sitting up tall with your spine, but then I want you to kind of drop your head forward. And as you do that, maybe notice if any of that tension along the backs of the legs, either the calves or the hamstrings, increases in tightness, or maybe you feel more tightness through the hip flexors at the front. And then just let that chin come back up to parallel and notice again, is there any release in tightness? So when your head drops forward and down, if that increases some of that tightness along that kind of back posterior chain of the body, that could be that indication of the neck kind of pulling things a little bit tighter. So now go ahead and keep your chin parallel for a moment, and then just kind of start to round your spine forward. And again, so now kind of rounding through the low back, mid back, and just noticing if that tightness increases anywhere at the back of the legs. Good, and then from there, just go ahead and sit back up. So just kind of testing where you are, what it's doing in your body when you move kind of different parts of your body. So from here, you're gonna come to lie down. So you can kind of take that block off to the side if you were using it. I do suggest you either use some sort of kind of prop to help you. So if you have a yoga strap, great. If you don't, feel free to allow yourself to grab a belt or a towel or a scarf. So the prop will really help you to kind of work with the leg evenly through both sides, which is really important, which we'll talk about. So once you have your prop, go ahead and just come to lie down on your back. And I would say just start with the knees bent and the feet on the floor. Eventually, if you want to straighten your legs, the leg you're not doing out, you can do that. But for now, I'm going to say kind of just take the hamstrings out of it entirely while you're here. And then you're going to take that prop that you're using, so whether it is your strap or your belt or whatever, and go ahead and put it around, we'll do this left leg first. So take it around the sole of your left foot, but you're going to think about putting it more around the balls of your feet than that center of your arch. So go up a little bit closer to the toes, then back towards the heel. And then I want you to take your strap, one end in each hand. So you're not going to put the ends together and hold on to them, but one end in each hand. Keep your knee bent for a second, and then just slide your hands down on that strap enough that your upper arms and your elbows can rest on the floor next to the sides of your ribs. So you're kind of really keeping the chest open, the arms relaxed, so we're not creating tension in another part of the body, just to kind of release the legs. So still have this knee bent for a second, and then you're gonna flex that left ankle as much as you can. So really think about making that angle between the top of your left foot and the front of your left shin as tiny as you can. And once you flex your ankle the most, so you'll kind of feel the stretch through your calf first, then I want you to kind of what you just did sitting on the floor. So start to kind of push up through the heel, but as you do that, I want you to you can release one strap from the hand for a moment so you have a free hand. Take your hand, you're gonna tap your quad muscles on the front. So the quads are kind of the antagonist muscle to the hamstring at the back. So the more that these activate to support the hamstring stretch, the more the hamstrings can release. So tap that quad just to kind of get that proprioception and get your brain thinking about it. And then you're gonna take your quad and you wanna imagine it's gonna grab a hold of your kneecap and try to see if you can even see that kneecap kind of pull down in the direction of your hip. So you're thinking about pulling that big femur bone in your thigh all the way down into your hip as much as you want to push that heel up towards the ceiling. So again, you're lengthening your leg from floor to ceiling, and then you can kind of hold on to both ends of the strap again. And so the reason you're holding on to both ends is so that you can see if you're pulling evenly back. So if you look up at your toes, you're going to want all 5 of your toes to be in one straight line. So oftentimes our legs may be a little tight, so you may find that the pinky toe is kind of rolling up towards the ceiling, and that outer ankle is more kind of stretched than the inner ankle. So I want you to make sure that if you find that's true for you, then I want you to pull back on that pinky toe side, because that's kind of most common for us, is to have that kind of rotation of the foot that way, so that turning of the foot in. So I want you to pull back on both ends as evenly as you can so that all 5 of your toes are in that straight line, almost like you want to make a complete footprint on the ceiling. And then again, you're still going to push that heel up. You're going to pull that thigh down into the floor as much as you can. And if you find that it pulls on your low back a lot or your hip flexors get tight, just take your leg a little bit further away from you so you don't have to have it straight up and down. So find a place that you can feel that stretch, but I also want you to be able to breathe into it. So when we have tension in the body, we have to remind our nervous system that this new way of being that we're trying to retrain it into right now is actually a safe place to be. And the only way that it knows that is if we take these really long, deep breaths. So I want you to start to kind of breathe into the sides of your ribs, sides of your waist. Deep breath in through the nose. If it helps, exhale through the mouth. And then you're just going to take one more inhale through the nose. Good. Keep making sure that quad is engaged. They like to relax in the middle. And then exhale it out. Good. And then just softly rebend that left knee. You can just put your left foot back on the floor, or if you want to straighten both legs out for a moment, sometimes that can be really nice to do, to just kind of feel that leg that you've done, the leg that you haven't. And usually the leg that you've done even feels a little bit longer than the one that you haven't. And then so when you're ready, go ahead and just re-bend that left knee. Put your left foot on the floor. You can take your strap around the sole of your right foot. Again, up more towards the balls of the feet, because it'll just help you pull from there. And then keep that knee bent as you take one end of the strap into each hand. Draw the upper arms down. So spread across the collarbones, just opening the chest. Let the arms rest on the floor. And then as you're ready, really flex that right foot. With that right foot flex, try not to lose any of that flex so that you do actually get the stretch through both the calf and the hamstring. Start to press your heel up. But again, if you want, tap that right quad with your fingers for a moment so that you can really engage the quad. Try to pull your leg, that thigh bone, down into that hip joint on the right side. Just really plug it into the hip joint. Feel the back of that right hip really kind of ground and integrate into the floor. And then really push up through that right heel. And again, if you find that that ankle's kind of turned and your foot is turned a little bit so it's not even, so you want your inner ankle and your outer ankle to kind of be the same length. So they're both stretching evenly. You can kind of pull back on that pinky toe side a little bit harder maybe. And then really think about lengthening from your upper inner thigh, that right thigh, all the way up and out through that kind of big toe side of your foot. Just to kind of counterbalance what is most of our kind of normal way of being, which is to have this kind of inner side of the leg be a little bit tighter and shorter than the outer side of the leg, the pinky toe side. I'm just going to take a few breaths here. So again, keep that heel pressing up, keep the quad engaged. So keep grabbing a hold of that kneecap and trying to pull it down. With your quad, it's a little tiny motion, so it can be kind of hard to find. But just start to think about it, even if you're not sure if you're doing it, just let your brain start to understand what that is, and eventually kind of the connection between the brain and the muscle will catch up. So just taking a deep breath in, breathe into the sides of your ribs, your waist. Sigh it out, let it go. And then 2 more times, deep breath in. Exhale, soften through the belly, the low back. Again, modify that leg if you need to so that you can breathe deeply. Take one more inhale. Exhale, sigh it out, let it go. Good, and then just gently rebend that right leg. Again, place your foot down on the floor or extend both of those legs out. Just kind of feel that extra length that you get just by those few moments that you spent with your strap on the floor. When you're ready, just coming to sit back up for a moment. Maybe even extend the legs out in front of you. See if you can maybe even find more length or sit up even a little bit easier and taller just by those few moments there. And then go ahead and just take your hands together for a moment. Bring your hands to your heart. So just any time that we're working with the body, just taking that moment to just give yourself gratitude for choosing to take the time to take care of yourself in this way. Giving your body gratitude for all that it does each day to allow you to experience the world. And just giving gratitude for that kind of inner wisdom that comes from your heart. Just taking one more deep breath in. And sighing it out, let it go. And namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.